I don't even really know where to start, guys. That was a tough episode, to say the least. All right, so we will just put that out there right now. All right, but without further ado, let's go ahead, welcome you guys back to episode reviews for The Walking Dead. This is my episode review of the Season 7 premiere of The Walking Dead that aired last night. This was Season 7, Episode 1, entitled The Day Will Come When You Won't Be. This episode was absolutely insane, everybody, and as much as we've been expecting it, this was a huge shocker, all right, to say the least. And this episode, like, it I don't even know what to say, man. Like, it's so deep, it's so dark, it's so in your face intense, really. And I mean, you could really just tell that from, like, even the sneak peek that we've seen this past week. Obviously, the right-hand man sneak peek that I'm talking about. Where Rick is basically sat down, or still kneeling, rather, and Negan says, "What is the joke that bad?" And, I mean, yes, that is where the episode starts off. We don't really get to find out who he killed right off the bat. It's about 20 minutes in, which I thought was an interesting approach to it. I really did. But ultimately, this episode was just... It was so intense from the get-go because we started off with that right-hand man sneak peek, still not knowing, what actually happened. I mean, obviously we know that somebody died, and, that was the aftermath of it. But it immediately resumes, after the commercial break. They kept building all this tension up to the actual kill. Even though we've waited 6 months, they continued to make us wait another 20 or 25 minutes, which was just hell. It was absolute hell, guys. It really was. And like I said, this episode had so many mixed emotions, built into it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what to say. Some parts were funny, some parts, which is kind of dark to say, but there were jokes in there and stuff like that, like Negan humor and stuff like that you have to laugh at. It's hilarious, you know what I mean? He has a really dark sense of humor. And then there was obviously parts in it where, death occurred and it was super dark and you couldn't really get over it, you know what I mean? Just sadness took over you, disbelief, took over you. All these mixed emotions, hate for Negan, love for Rick, sadness for his group, and all these mixed emotions. It's hard to really point one out. It was a crazy episode, guys. It was a crazy intense episode, and without further ado, all right, everybody, this episode will contain spoilers. The episode won't. I mean, the episode will, but then it's not really a spoil. I'm talking about the review here, all right? That'll contain spoilers, so make sure you guys go watch the fucking show. All right, do not sit here and watch this review. It's going to ruin it for you, all right? So if you guys haven't watched this, you should be watching this now. I haven't revealed any deaths as of yet. You guys would probably be pretty upset if I did. But I'm telling you, go watch this episode. You have to. Even if you're not even a fan of The Walking Dead, this episode of just general TV will make you think twice about actually starting to watch it. And it was crazy, guys. It was crazy. So many people were pissed off at the fact that they left this as a cliffhanger for 6 months, but I'm telling you right now, well worth the wait. And for all those people that said this was a cliffhanger, I'm going to stop watching, welcome back, fuckers, because we all know that you're here. All right, welcome back. So, yeah, man, I mean, I don't even really know where to start with this. I really don't. I usually go with the recaps, for The Walking Dead, but this is not something that I can really recap, detail out, because there's just so much in the episode, man. There's just so much in the episode, and it was just a crazy episode all the way through. Of course, it was extended as well, so it wasn't exactly 45 minutes. Obviously, it's supposed to be an hour, but 45 minutes with commercials. It was roughly around, I want to say 55 minutes. I'd like to say 55 minutes, somewhere around there, which is just, it's still a good time. It's not quite a 90-minute episode like some of the premieres and the finales have been, but 55 minutes is a lot better than 45 minutes, especially when you need, those extra 30 minutes after the death happens that, really, really gets to you, all right? So let's go ahead and get into it, everybody. The scene that starts off after the right-hand man clip, again, the right-hand man clip actually starts the episode off, and, from there we get to see Rick go on a joyride with Negan, sort of a tour, if you will. and a mission that Negan sets Rick out on, which we do get to learn that mission was to basically take him to the area in which they used last episode for the guy hanging from the bridge, and there was like wood and everything like that piled upon a road. You know, it sort of blocked the road off and stopped them getting from the hilltop. We've seen that last episode, and that got lit on fire. All right, so the fogginess around them is not really fog, it's actually just wood smoke, you know what I mean? So that was a little bit confusing there. I thought it was fog. It was really bad fog, but after we get to, you know, see really where the location is, which is again that big pile of wood on the road blocking them from going to the hilltop in last episode, you know, we get to know that that's most likely wood smoke, or, you know, at least most of it is. So Negan drives Rick there, and he basically ends up taunting Rick, you know, throughout that entire drive. And then at the end of the drive, he throws Rick's axe, or hatchet, I guess, whatever you want to call it. He likes to call it an axe. Anyways, he throws Rick's hatchet outside of the RV there, and basically tells Rick to go get it. You know, demands him to go get it, says that that's his axe, he needs to go get it. And there's herds of walkers outside. Negan ultimately throws Rick out of the RV, and I personally thought that was a great test for Negan, you know? Multiple occasions he said that, you know, he thought Rick was the right guy for the job, maybe he was wrong, and maybe he had to go kill them all anyway. And throughout that entire test, that's really what it was all about. He wanted to see if Rick had what it took, you know, to survive, right? So he threw that axe out in the middle of herds of walkers in the smoke. Rick actually ended up going on top of the RV and, you know, finally getting the axe. And while he was on top of the RV, that's when the dream sequences started to happen. And I thought this was personally a great way to present the death scene. And that's exactly how they did it. So he's laying on top of the RV. Of course, Negan's still inside. Negan demanded him to get the hatchet or the axe and bring it to him. Obviously, walkers are completely surrounding the RV at this point, so Rick is literally just laying down on his back on top of the RV roof. Safe and sound from the walkers. That's pretty much the only place he can go, because he got almost bitten on a few occasions. And I think what really started the dream sequences here, guys, is Negan basically saying, you know, think about what has happened and think about what can still happen. And that's when the dream sequences start to happen, basically him thinking back to the actual kill. We get to see Negan in that flashback or dream sequence, whatever you want to call it, basically do an eeny, meeny, miny, moe again, and ultimately it lands on Abraham. All right, so yes, Abraham did get the death. He got the bat, he got Lucille, and he got one upside the head, and I thought it was, again, another funny moment that I was talking about before. Basically, he gets up, you know, he sits back up from one Lucille blow, and basically, in defiance, tells Negan to suck his nuts, which I thought was freaking hilarious. I really did. Again, there's certain moments in the episode that where you have to bust out laughing, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you knew that Abraham was dying right then and right there. So it sort of broke the tension for a split second, and then boom, right back to it with the blow to the head again. And it was just so devastating, man. It was just so devastating. It really was. There's no other way to put it. And ultimately, Abraham got his skull crushed into the ground, all the while Sasha, mostly, and of course Rosita, pretty close to him as well. You know, they're both watching on in complete shock, and they're both crying. And I mean, really, can you really imagine? You know what I mean? Like, he left Rosita, yes, but of course she's still going to have feelings for him. And he left Rosita for Sasha, which obviously has feelings for him. And yeah, hard scene to watch, I will say that much. And basically after the kill, he actually ends up going over to Rosita and asking her, you know, if they were together, shows her the bat, basically taunting the shit out of her, you know, and basically Daryl right then gets frustrated and hauls off, gets up and punches Negan right in the mouth, gets a really good shot off on him, and at this point, heart literally dropped in my chest. I didn't know what the fuck to think, you know what I mean? Daryl literally just got up, punched Negan in the mouth, and we all know that doesn't fly, you know what I mean? And he ends up bringing that back to us, you know. Negan basically brings that point back to us, basically saying the first explosion, the first outburst was free. There's a lot of tension, a lot of emotions. He gets it, you know. He ends up bringing that back to, I don't know, the present, I guess, you know, reminding them, I guess. And of course, that was the second outburst. He basically said that he will shoot that shit down no exceptions. And as soon as he says that, basically he turns around. Everybody's thinking that he's going to go ahead and kill Daryl because of the outburst, but he doesn't. He ends up turning around and bashing Glenn in the head. After the first bash, Glenn went down to the ground and he bashed him again, basically caving in this entire part of his head. And Glenn actually managed to sit up, which was just crazy. You know what I mean? That much love and that much determination in Glenn for Maggie. Especially, he sits up, and a scene right out of the comic book that I never thought that would actually happen, because it would be a scene that I thought would be really hard to pull off on cable TV, is Glenn's head being caved in and his eyeball literally sticking out of its socket. Negan points it out, basically saying, you know, I just hit you over the head so hard that your eyeball popped out, and it is gross as shit. Again, all these quotes, very funny, straight from the comic book from Negan. You know, it has to break tension, you know, somewhat at some times, or it's going to be really dark, and it's going to cause people to, you know, it's going to do a lot of damage, basically, to people even that are watching. And it's crazy because Glenn basically struggled to mumble, and he did. He mumbled, "Maggie, I'll find you." And that's obviously looking back and thinking back to when, you know, those constant times that he obviously always lost Maggie. Like after the prison, for example, he lost Maggie for a little while. He actually ended up reuniting with her on the way to Terminus, and then of course losing her again back in season 6 with episode 3. We all thought that he died when he crawled under the dumpster, and you know, that was horrible as well. And he's always made his way back to Maggie. Obviously this time that's not going to happen. But he says that, "Maggie, I will find you," in the end anyway. Probably alluding to, I mean, unless he's just straight being delusional, you know, because his head's caved in and stuff like that. But, I mean, I kind of took it as he'll find her in the afterlife. He'll find her, you know, down the line, you know, they will eventually reunite in some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? That's what I kind of took that Glenn meant there. Could totally be wrong. He could have been just completely delusional and saying, you know, "I will find you again," you know, stuff like that. I don't know. You know what I mean? I took it as the afterlife sort of thing, but I'm not sure what really Glenn believed in there, but he was probably just saying it in the end to, you know, be thinking of Maggie and saying that this was not the end of their relationship. And, you know, he'll be there always in spirit, you know, for her and the kid, if the kid actually manages to survive, obviously. And, yeah, man, just getting hit with Abraham's death like that, and then almost immediately afterwards with Glenn, that was just, it was hard to watch, to say the least, but you couldn't stop watching. In the end, Glenn is still thinking about somebody other than himself, even as he's dying, and Negan takes the time to basically apologize, saying that he knows that it's hard on them, stuff like that, and, you know, he could be sincere. I doubt it, you know what I mean? I doubt it. But he basically says back to it and, you know, continues bashing in Glenn's skull and ultimately killing him. And then we get put back in the present with Rick on top of the RV. Basically, Negan says, you know, "I'll give you one more shot. I thought you were the guy." And hell ensues. Rick jumps off of the RV with the hatchet or the axe that he needs to bring Negan, and hangs on to the walker, or the person that is now a walker, rather, that got hanged from the bridge, you know, in the last episode. He hangs from him, sunlight coming in. I'm not really sure how that's looking on the camera. All right, we should be fine. He looks to, you know, him to basically jump on, because there's herds of walkers beneath him. He jumps and hangs on him while the walker's still alive, almost biting Rick again, and the walker's neck basically starts to tear off of the chain hanging above, and it's not good for Rick in the end, you know what I mean? Just as he's about to fall, we get to see that picture of basically Negan opening up the back window of the RV and shooting out, and actually killing pretty much all the walkers around Rick, actually saving Rick's life. So we should be somewhat appreciative, I want to say. Like, don't condescend me or anything like that. I'm not actually saying that we should be appreciative of Negan, but he did save Rick's life ultimately there. You know, he didn't really have an option, you know what I mean? He has to give him a chance, right? So he did help him out there, and he basically reminds Rick, "Get my axe." So Rick climbs over some walkers that some of them are still alive, grabs his axe, absolutely goes ham with it, smashing walkers left and right into the RV, and with the hatchet as well. We get to see Rick going absolutely crazy with it like we did back in Alexandria in episode 8 of season 6. Of course, that would be No Way Out is what I'm talking about. And ultimately, we get to see him reunite with Negan in the RV, hand him his hatchet, on the table, and they sit down and ultimately go back to, the scene where all of his people are still lined up there. So he gets dragged back out of the RV. It's now daytime. That was ultimately the test that he went through to make Rick see Negan for what he wanted to see him as, which is his new leader. He wanted Rick to get that. He wanted him to grasp that. And ultimately, he thinks that Rick hasn't quite done that yet. He still has this look in his eyes that he wants to kill him, someday, not today, not tomorrow, but, he will kill him and stuff like that. So we get to see Negan take it one step further. All right. This is to try to break Rick. You know what I mean? He still has this look in his eyes that he knows that he's going to kill him. And Negan doesn't want that look. He wants another look. So he gives him one more opportunity. Rick asks him for one more shot, or else he was going to kill everybody there on that lineup. So he asks him for one more shot. And this was it. He grabs Carl, basically gets him to lean down beside his dad. And this was pretty hard to watch because it just absolutely tears Rick apart. Such a strong character we get to see Rick as most of the time. And this just absolutely tore him apart, guys. This broke him. This absolutely devastated Rick. And it was either this or everybody he loved on that lineup was going to die. And then the people back at Alexandria was going to die. His kid was going to die ultimately. Rick was tasked with cutting off Carl's left arm, from the forearm up. And, Negan did take precaution, put a belt around Carl's arm to obviously cut off some circulation to stop the blood loss. And Rick is tasked with cutting off his arm. He drew a line on his arm, and Rick is basically sitting there pleading and pleading. Ultimately, Negan counts from 3 down to 1, and, not really having another option. It was either cut off Carl's left arm, multiple times. Rick basically said, it could be me. I'll go with you. You do it to me. You cut off my arm. Obviously, that was probably alluding to the comic book a little more. Obviously, that was the governor instead, though. But nonetheless, he ultimately raised his axe, and just as he was about to do it, because, again, it was either his arm or everybody there died. They had guns pointed to all the back of their heads and everything like that. And as soon as he picked up the axe and was about to swing down, Negan basically stopped him and basically said, you work for me. It's as simple as that. You provide for me. And Rick agrees, saying, provide for you. And then says, right. And, basically agrees. Still sobbing, still crying, almost having to cut off his son's arm. He's a broken man. And right before he did that, Carl actually whispered up his dad saying, just do it, Dad, just do it. And that ultimately is what led Rick to, I think, submitting to Negan ultimately. If his son can do that, if his son can sit there and say, cut off my arm for the better of the group, then you can submit for the better of the group, right? So Negan didn't let him cut off his son's arm. He just wanted him to believe that he was going to, and Rick was just about to. And it was a heartbreaking scene, man. You know what I mean? It really was. It broke Rick. Again, such a strong character at all times during every point of the show. And just to see that, be done, to Rick and break his character like that is absolutely insane. But don't fear, everybody. I don't think it's over yet. Because I you know what I mean? I read the comic book, no spoilers or anything like that, but I don't think it's going to be that easy for Rick. You know what I mean? I think he's probably got a little something up his sleeve. But with that being said, near the end of the episode, they actually ended up packing Daryl into the back of the van, so they are taking Daryl captive, all right? And basically said, if you want to try something, not today, not tomorrow, but someday I will send you parts of Daryl in the mail, or better yet, I'll come to Alexandria and make you chop him up for me. and basically using Daryl as insurance, essentially. You know what I mean? So they took him captive. Daryl's not dead. They're obviously going to have to patch up his gunshot wound for him, you know, ultimately not to die. But nonetheless, they took Daryl captive and basically left all of the remaining survivors, of course, with Glenn and Abraham's bodies there as well. You know, basically they're on the ground, leaving it to, you know, sort of for everybody to really come to that realization of, it's over. You know, we now work for Negan, and they have to pick up their pieces. You know, it really lets it all sink in. Not even only for the characters, but as soon as the saviors are gone, there's a sigh of relief, but at the same time, there's this realization even to the viewers that, holy shit, you know, holy shit, what did we just witness? And our group that we're always so behind, you know, has now been broken, ultimately, into a million pieces. And, yeah, I don't know. Maggie basically points out that they need to go get ready. They're going to be obviously fighting. Rick points out, you know, he has an army. You know, we're all going to die. We can't fight that. And, in the end, not to waste your guys' time or anything like that, again, go watch the episode. They basically bring Glenn and Abraham's body with them, obviously packing everything in the RV and to another truck that I believe Negan left them, to go to the hilltop to ultimately seek, you know, help for Maggie and her problem, which actually is what led them out in the first place. Maggie's feeling a lot of guilt because of that, because, you know, she's the one that's out there trying to get to the hilltop for a doctor. She's the one that basically got Abraham and everybody there like that. And it's just, yeah, you can see a lot of guilt on Maggie's face, but at the same time, you know, even with guilt, there's just pure sadness. There's pure destruction. You know, she's lost her father, Herschel, in season 4. She lost Beth in season 5. You know, her father, her sister, all gone. And now ultimately, the last thing that she really cares about in this world, other than her unborn child, which she could still lose, which that would be probably the end of Maggie if that happened, because that's the last remaining thing that, you know, is Glenn, is that child. And yeah, guys, I don't know. I don't know. So ultimately, as they drive off, Rick sees a walker basically going up and, you know, sort of devouring the remains of Glenn and Abraham's body there on the rocks and on the gravel. And Rick drives off as well. And that's where the episode comes to a close, everybody. So, again, not a full recap this time. I wanted to do things a little bit differently. It might have still been on the long side. I don't know how long. Not too bad. Not too bad. I should be able to probably cut a lot of that out. But either way, everybody, that was the episode review. Thank you all so much for watching. And again, you have to go watch this episode. There's no other way around it. There's no other way to put it. You have to go watch this episode. This review does not do it justice. All right, I mean, if you haven't watched the episode, then I'm not sure exactly why you watched the review. But nonetheless, thank you all so much for watching. And yeah, I don't know. I'll see you guys this Thursday. If you only watch my Walking Dead videos, I'll see you guys this Thursday for my episode predictions for this week's up-and-coming episode of The Walking Dead. Remember, that was only the season premiere. All right, that was only the season premiere, and that was fucking insane. And up-and-coming episode of The Walking Dead, episode 2 of season 7, entitled The Well. All right? Yeah, I still going through a lot of, you know, processing, especially with me, especially with Glenn as well. You know what I mean? Like, I just, yeah, I don't know. Abraham was hard to take, but, you know, I can probably get over Abraham. Glenn, I don't think I'll ever be able to get over him. The Atlanta 5 has now become the Atlanta 4. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye. Welcome to today's video. Not exactly sure why I did the intro like that, but anyways, if you guys tuned in yesterday to the channel, alright, you guys would have seen a stream that I went ahead and, well, streamed. Yeah, I did a stream yesterday, and the archive obviously is up on the channel, so you guys...